Hello and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial I want to show you how you can create a simple inventory system, since my last inventory tutorials get a little bit too complicated. This will be a very easy way to create a good usable inventory. So we are in this environment, we have our third person character, very simple. And for example, I have a static mesh, just a book that we can use later. So let's start with right click, blueprints, structure. And we call this item, because of course we need an item structure. Open this up and we need a few variables here. So the first one will be the name of the item. So this will be in text. The second one will be an amount. Of course, this is an integer. The third one will be the thumbnail. The thumbnail will be a texture 2D, object reference like this one. And the fourth one will be just the variable valid. It's as a boolean to see if the item is valid. So this is our item structure that we will use for all the items and the inventory. So let's go back to our inventory here. So the second thing is we want to create a widget for the inventory. So right click, use interface, widget. And let's call this inventory. Open this up. And first of all, of course, we have the canvas panel here that we can see later. So the first thing that we need is a size box. So we put it just right here, pull it out here, like that. Inside the size box will be a border. So the border is that we have a background color. So we go to the brush here. And let's make this like a little bit gray. Great. So, and the last thing is we need a grid panel inside here, like that. So, and the grid panel, we'll give it a name. Let's call this just grid, like that. And we will keep this like it is. Great. So this will be our inventory that we've seen in the game. Compile and save this. And the second thing is we go back. Now we need the second widget that called item underscore slot. Open this up. And we can delete the canvas panel and add another size box inside here. In this case, we will override the sizes, let's say to 50-50. So again, we want a border for the background color. Let's, keep this like this one here. And then we need a button. This will be our thumbnail later, like that. And let's put the padding to 4 as well, so that it has the same size in every direction. And we call this button thumbnail, like that. So let's go back to our third person character, and we need a few variables here. So the first one will be the inventory itself. And the inventory will be our item structure that we created, but we will do this as an array. Compile and save this, and now we have the inventory here, and when we click plus, you can see we have one item with the name, amount, thumbnail, and the valid status. Let's say we add up 24 elements here, and just for example, let's preset the first one. So just call it test amount 1, and we choose this icon here and say this is valid. Okay, so we have an inventory with 24 slots and the first item is set it. Great. So, and the second variable that we need is the widget itself. This will be our inventory object reference. So the inventory widget we created as an object reference, of course, as a single variable. And the third one that we need is inventory open as an boolean, so that we know, is the inventory open or is it closed. So the next part is we go back to our inventory widget here and we go to our graph. So we can delete everything here because we want to create some custom functions. So the first function is create inventory. So this function will just called one time at the beginning of the game. So we start up with the input. The input will be the slots. So how many slots he should create. That's the idea behind that. From here we say for loop, this one here. And from the slots, we say integer minus integer, keep it to 1, and this will be the last index. So you go through the slots that we gave him and create the slots that we want. From the loop body, we say create widget, and we select our item slot, like this. From the index, we say integer defeated by another integer, and I will keep this to 6. So that means it is for later that we go to our inventory here. So we have 6 slots in a row. That's the idea behind that. So we select our grid and make it a variable. So is variable. When we go back to the graph, we have the grid here. So we pull it out, get it. So next we need a branch to ask, is the integer down here equal with 0? Then we go from the grid and say add child to grid. This will be the true case, and this down here is the false case, so copy and paste. The return value is of course the content in both cases, and we connect the grid with the target as well. So now we have to decide when the item slot has to be in a row or in a column. So from here we go integer multiplied by another integer. This is 6 in this case as well. The index goes into the column. The defeated integer is the row, so this is the basic case. So when the index is under 6, so it means it's a 0, the true case, it's just the index is the column of course, and the defeated is of course in this case 0, so every time it will stay on 0. Down here we have to do another thing, so we go from here and say integer minus another integer, like that. So the index is of course above 6, so we take it minus this one here, and this is the column in this case. And from here, this is the row. So I hope you understand that. So this is everything. So the second function that we want to create is the update inventory. This gets an input. Of course, the inventory itself. And this will be an item reference, so our item structure that we created, and this will be an array, of course, like that. So the first thing is we get the length, then we need an for loop again, and the length is the last index in this case. Then we pull out our grid again, get it. Then we say get child at, put the index into the index, like this one. Then we go from our inventory again, say get a copy. The index goes inside here. So we go over every element inside the inventory. From the loop body, we cast to our item slot. The return value goes into the object, of course, and from here we say break item. And as you can see, he breaks the item into our name, amount, thumbnail, and valid. So from here we say get thumbnail so that we can set it. Actually, what we want to do is we go back to our item slot, so the widget, go to the graph, and we need then, can delete this, and we need a second variable. So we have our thumbnail already because it's a button. It's every time when you put in a button, it's already a variable. We created another one. This will be the index, and this will be an integer. Compile and save this. Then we go back to our inventory. We go again from the item slot and say set index. Like that. Of course, the index will be the index. Then we go from the thumbnail and say get style. And the good part is we can right click on the style and say split structure pin. And you can see we have the style for the normal, the hovered, pressed, disabled. So for every style that we want to set. To be sure that is valid, we go from the thumbnail and say is valid with the question mark. Connect it here. So of course when it's valid, we want to set something. So we go from the normal first and say set brush resource to texture. When it's valid. The second thing, so we can copy and paste this actually for the hovered one. That will be the brush. Copy and paste this down here for the when it's not valid case. Again, we connect the brush with the normal and the hovered. And now we have to set the texture. Down here, we leave it to nothing because we want to set it to nothing. That's important. And otherwise, of course, we connect the thumbnail with the texture. In both cases, if you want, you can create another one. So when it's hovered, it looks different if you want to. So you can even create one when it's pressed. So you can set all the brushes. Great. So we are done here. So that's the update inventory function. Now we go to our item slot because we need some functionality inside here too. So we go to the details, select our thumbnail, in this case it is a button, and we hit the onClick event, like this one. We say get player character, then we cast to our third person character in my case, connect it. From here we say get inventory, then we say set array element. Of course, the inventory is the target array. The index is the index. The item, we keep it to nothing, because the idea is when we click on an item in our inventory, it should be just disappear so that we used it. Just for example, we can, in the next tutorial, we will do some other functions, but this is just a simple way. From the third person character, we say get widget. And then we just can say update inventory again. Of course, the inventory goes into the inventory. And that's it right here. So we can close this. We go back to our third person character and we start with the begin play event, of course. So event begin play. When the game starts, of course, we want to create the widget. And in this case, of course, we want to create our inventory. Then we take out our inventory itself, get the length, and from the return value we want to create inventory. So we call our function that we created and it asks for the slots. We connect the length with the slots. So as you remembered, we have 24 elements inside our inventory here. So it gets the length, so the 24, and give it to the create inventory function that we created. And the last thing is we set the widget to the return value that we have. So this is our begin play event. The next thing is we want, of course, open our inventory. So let's call the inventory input action, this one here. So the first thing, of course, we want to ask, is the inventory open on pressed, like this one. Then we say get player controller, take out our widget, take out our inventory here. Then from the widget we say update inventory, put in our inventory here, like this one. So this will be our false case because the inventory is not open. We want that it's open now. Then we set the input mode to game and UI in this case. Connect the player controller, of course, put the widget into in-widget to focus, and we uncheck the hide cursor during capture. Then from here we say set show mouse cursor, connect the get player controller with the target here, and of course we put this to true. We go from the widget again and say add to viewport, like that. And the last thing, of course, is we want to set the inventory open boolean to true. So what we can do now is we copy and paste this up here as well as this one. Here we say remove widgets, so remove all widgets. Of course, the show mouse cursor goes to false, the inventory open goes to false up here. And in the true case, we want to set the input mode to game only. Connect the player controller, and this, of course, here the target is the get player controller as well. And that's it. So when we open the inventory, it asks, is the inventory already open? If it's not, it update the inventory, call the function that we created, set the input mode to game and UI only so that we can control the widget, show the mouse cursor, add it to the viewport, and say the inventory is open. If it's already open, it put the input mode to game only, remove the mouse cursor, remove the widget, and say the inventory is not open anymore. Great. So let's see if that works. So we hit play, open the inventory. It works, but that didn't look pretty good. So let's go back to the item slot, go to the size box. Let's make this a little bit bigger right here and go to the border and give like 4 padding. Let's see if this looks better. Yeah, it looks better, but now the inventory itself has to be a little bit more like that. Great. So now we have an inventory. You can fix this if you want. And what we can do is when we click on this, you can see it already disappears. Our one item that we have, when we reopen it, will still gone. Great. So the next thing is we want to pick up this book here, and that will appear in our inventory. That's the idea. So first of all, we make this as blueprint actor. So right click, blueprint class actor, call this just book, open this up, and I want to add this static mesh here, so I will select it, add component, static mesh. Pull it right here. What we need is, now we need a box collision. This will be our trigger here. So to interact with this book, we need an interact interface. So it's pretty easy. Right click, blueprints, blueprints, interface. So this will be our interact interface. Open this up, and the function will be just interact. So it's pretty easy. So an interact interface, or in this case an interface, will share a function between two items, so our character and the book. So the good part is we go to the class settings and we say implement interfaces, and we want to add our interact interface, this one here. Great. So then we go to the event graph and we need the interact event. So this one here, event interact, you can see that's from the interface of this icon here, get player character. Then we cast to our third person character, in my case, connect it. We get the inventory. Then we say for each loop with break, connect the array here. Then we need the new variable here for our book. This is the item, and of course it has our item structure that we say compile and save. And now we can call this, of course, book. The amount will be 1. The thumbnail, let's choose this one here just for example, and of course this is valid. So then we take out this item here, get it. We go from the array element, say break item. Then we need a branch to ask, is the array element valid? So from the branch we say, in the false case, set array element. Of course we connect the inventory array with the target array. The index is of course the array index, and the item is the item, like that. After that we want to destroy the actor, in this case the self, so the book itself, so that the book is disappearing. And the last part is we go from the third person character, get the widget, and we want that it updates the inventory so that we can see the element into our inventory. Connect the inventory, of course, and then we go from this point here and to the break, so it didn't have to go forward to the loop again. So it casts to our character, gets the inventory, go to every element of the inventory, checks which is the next not valid element, so that means that it's an empty item slot. There we replace the item into, destroy the actor because we pick it up, and then we update our inventory. So the last part is we go to our third person character, and we need the part here as well. So we go to the project settings, input, and we have the inventory input action on I and the interact on E. So go back to the third person character and say interact. Then we say get overlapping actors, select the actor. We say for each loop with break, enter the array, go from the array element, does implement interface, select our interact interface. In this case we need a branch, of course, to ask, and on true we of course go from the array element and call the interact message. So it sent the message in this case to our book. And then we go back to break. So this is just to interact with every item that you want to create, so that we overlapping this actor. That's why we create the box collision. And now let's put this into the world and see what happens. So this is just a static mesh right now. And we have our blueprint book here. We select it, right click, replace selected actor with book. And there you can see it's our collision box. So we hit play, open up our inventory. There's our one element that we have. We go to our book down here, press E to interact, and there it is. And when we do this again, so we hit play again, we remove our element first from the inventory here, go here, and now it's on the first place. And when we click it, it disappears again. Great. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know, and yeah, goodbye.